happened? You're okay? Pain in the eye? Eye is paining.
Yeah, went to the hospital for this.
Ah,
Just the same problem is still.
it's still
keeps
there?
coming.
It's still there? Oh,
One of these days will go.
it'll go, yeah.
You'll notice it. They don't
Yeah.
say goodbye or anything.
Yeah, we don't need for it to say goodbye or anything. It can just go.
Just let them go.
Yeah, let it go. Sheila isn't here. Cat also isn't here.
It works.
Cat works tonight. Okay.
She moved forwards.
Huh? She's moving soon. Ah. Sound is not here. Why? Oh, because it's not green. Okay. That's not a problem. Now it is there. Yeah, everything is all set. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. How nice to just soak in the Kathopanishad. Wednesday, Kathopanishad day. Nice. So, Om na tatra suryo bhati
Om Natatra Suryo Bhati
na chandra tarakam
Chandra Tarakam
nema vidyuto bhanti
Nema Vidyuto Bhanti
kutoyam agnihi
Utoyam Agnihi
tameva bhantam
Tameva Bhantam
anubhati sarvam
Anubhati Sarvam
tasya bhasa
Tasya Vasa
sarvamidam vibhati.
Sarvamidam Vibhati.
Yeah. This is something we chant every day. Don't even have to practice it. One of the advantages. And if people recall, when we had the class 2 years ago, I had left it on a question. What was the question? Huh? Will this ever end? Actually, we are on the last section after this. It will end.
Yes.
Yes. No, that was not the question.
Does it shine by itself?
Ah, what was the question?
Does it shine by itself?
Does it shine generally by itself, bhati, or what was the option?
By another one.
Huh?
By another one?
Not by another light. Does it shine generally,
Oh.
or does it shine particularly? That was not other light, don't go there yet. Okay? Yeah. Does it shine generally, or does it shine particularly? And I had put it this way, does it shine particularly or does it shine generally? How do we know this? I'm not making up this question. It was there in the last mantra. Kimu bhati vibhati va. Bhati, shine by itself, or vibhati, shines, specifically. So does it shine generally or does it shine specifically? That's what I asked you to think about. And you had 2 weeks. Some people, already there is pakshadvayam, kotidvayam, meaning 2 kinds of answers in 2 weeks. And some people are saying generally. And then
About both.
about both. Very good. And some people are saying particularly, or some people are saying no, it cannot be particular because it has to be general.
Just shines.
Yeah, it just shines. What is this particular general business? And so that was the person in the last mantra, and I think to get the the context, the connection properly, we should have a small relook, not at the meaning, but just at the last mantra, the wordings of the last mantra. And what does it say? Tad etaditi manyante anirdeshyam paramam sukham. So that alone is this iti manyante, who brahmavadinah, the knowers of Brahman, manyante. What is that? Etat, knowing this, paramam sukham. What kind of sukham? Anirdeshyam. Not able to explain, expound, that kind of sukham. And then kathannutam vijaniyam. And how am I going to understand this? And this is both the sukham and then what's going to come afterwards. Kim u, indeed does it bhati or vibhati. Vibhati means specially bhati. Bhati means just bhati. Yeah. And here that same word bhati is used, natatra, suryo bhati na chandra tarakam, etc. And if you look closely, and this is an important grammatical distinction, there are two words starting with bha. First is bha itself, which means light. And then the second word is bhas, shine. Same thing. Bhasa, by the light. Light, shine, same thing. Both words mean the same things, and both words we will encounter in this. Bhati, bha, which is made, which is with a verbal ending. Bhati, like va, vati. What is it?
I'm trying to tell them which page we're on because I didn't give them the right page.
Oh.
It's on the counter, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Page 10, 2215. It's on the counter.
So, he knows this mantra. Everybody knows this mantra, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, but thank you. Then, now the thing is, this is the word bhas and bha are both there. So don't get confused. The bha is used in the verbal sense and bhas is used in the sense of a noun. And both are important, and I'll tell you the reason why later on. So then it is stopping on a question, the last mantra. What is the question? Does it shine specifically or does it shine generally? Is it a general shine or a specific shine? That is what it stops. This stops at. And the answer is given in a very beautiful way. And it is given slightly indirectly. It's an indirect answer, it's not a direct answer. What is the direct answer? Yes, it shines generally. Or yes, it shines specifically. That would have been a direct answer, but the Upanishad does not have direct answers at all. It always answers indirectly. It answers the spirit of the question rather than the question itself. Because kimu bhati vibhati va, it is it's an interesting question, but the one that cannot be conclusively answered, as we saw even in the class. People are shaking their heads like this, and it's like, okay, what is this? What is general shine, specific shine? What is the shine on this shine? What is the last word on this various kinds of shinings that we are encountering? And this is a mantra, like I said, the Kathopanishad is an inspiration for what? The Bhagavad Gita. A lot of mantras from here have been bodily lifted or happily plagiarized, or everything other than the Upanishad is plagiarism anyway. So, or a little bit modified and then put there, and then interestingly most of the verses come in the 15th chapter. So when I ask you, where do you encounter the Kathopanishad verses, what will you say? Bhagavad Gita. Which chapter? 15th chapter. So the 15th chapter, has become a locus for all the Kathopanishad verses. Second chapter also a few, but mostly in the 15th chapter. And here we have in the 15th chapter a similar verse. Lord Krishna giving his address. It's like, it's not krishna@heaven.org, but it's more in the sense of where can you find me? Where is my house? How do you find my house? And one would think Krishna's house, that should be the most luminous one on the street, in the block, the most shining one. But it begins on a slightly creepy note. Natad bhasayate suryaha. Same thing. Huh? There the sun does not shine. Oh my God, it's this Krishna is nocturnal or what? It's all just night time all the day. Natad bhasayate suryaha na shashanko na pavakaha. The moon also does not shine. Oh, okay, maybe it's a new moon, and we have all those, in those, what is that? The exotic, what is that called? Holiday resorts. They have these little firebrands burning in the pitch dark. Natad bhasayate suryaha na shashankaha, no moon, no sun. Na pavakaha, no firebrand, no source of light. Already scary, I don't want to go to Krishna's house now, because I'm truly worried. How am I going to find my way there? And even if I find my way there, how will I come back? It's Krishna's house is looking very, very similar to a black hole, and the last line clinches it. Yadgatva na nivartante. Once you go there, you never come back. Exactly like a black hole. Tadhama paramam mama. This is my ultimate absolute abode. Very scary stuff. As soon as you encounter this verse, and especially all the ways in which it has been translated, very hilarious. The translations. It really feels like a dark place of the place that nobody wants to visit. And why is it touted as something desirable? Well, we have to look deeper into it. We cannot look at it, at face value. And how to look deeper into it? Put on the glasses. No, what we have to do is to see that it's pointing to a certain fact that an object comes to light in two ways. Either it is a neon object. What's a neon object? Yes. Self-shining, self-effulgent, all these things we use for Atma. Nowadays there is this neon object. And even in the, airplanes, now they are, what did they say? What do they say before taking off? They say something like, if all the lighting fails, please follow these neon strips. They don't say that, but they will say these strips will lead you to the exit. Correct? So either something is neon, isotope, radioactive isotope, self-shining. You don't need anything else to make it evident. Correct? So either an object is self-shining, or an object needs to have a source of light to bring it to light. That's what really bringing it to light means. That's all. There's only two kinds of things that the objects fall under. Either it is self-shining, like isotope, neon lights, sun, fire, etc., self-shining, or it needs to be brought to light through another means of knowing. Correct? And so, in our technical parlance, we say it is svatas siddha, known by itself, or it needs what? It needs a pramana. Pramana means a means of knowledge. It is Svata Siddha or Pramana Siddha. It needs a means of knowledge like the eyes or something to say that it exists. So, for us, even though we joke about neon lights and isotopes, there is only one thing that does not require a means of knowledge to come to light. What is that? I, the self. But how can you say that? You mean I am an isotope? Even better than an isotope. Yeah. Why? Because I know I am. My existence is not dependent upon a certificate, given by the government. You exist. No, but I have a birth certificate. That's different. It's not a certificate of existence. Yeah, it's a certificate that you were born. Before you were probably somewhere enjoying some concert, and in some other realm, in some other loka, somewhere you were, and now you have, come back to the world of mortals. Many happy returns. This is a birth certificate, but nobody has a certificate of existence. And if you were to go ask for one, you will not get it. Institutions have certificate of existence. Like our ashram, each time we go for something, like if something official, you want to, open a new bank account, borrow money, whatever. They ask you for, please give us your certificate of existence, an updated certificate of existence. But individuals do not have certificate of existence because that you exist is self-evident. Nobody has to tell you you exist. Oh, really? Yes. Oh, that's nice. That's very nice. So the only thing that doesn't need a certificate of existence is you. Why? Because it is Svata Siddha. It is self-established, self-evident, self-effulgent, however you want to call it. But then if it is self-established, then, then that means nobody needs to tell me I exist, correct? Nobody needs to tell you I exist, tell you that you exist. But what about the other person? Self-existent. What about that person? Self-existent, self-existent, self-existent. How many self-existents are there? Only one self-existent thing. In many bodies, many minds, the existence is one and the same. We have come so far in the Kathopanishad, this much we can see and extrapolate from the previous verses. That the I is self-existent, and how many I's? One. Two if you are spelling it differently, but one if you are, if you are three if you are Lord Shiva, but one if you are talking about the I. The pronoun I, only one. That's why we say the I is in everything. The I in this body is the same as the I in that body, is the same as the I in that body. And in every body, that same I shines without needing a flashlight, without need to ask, am I here? That is my domain. I ask, are you here? You can't take that away. Are you here? What will you say? Yes. Even if you say no, you are really saying yes. Like even a baby or an infant, a child, a toddler hiding behind the couch. Don't look behind the sofa, I'm not there. And that means you are there. So even in negating yourself, you are advertising your existence. That's what means self-existent. That's the only meaning of self-existence. That you don't need, and what is that makes you say you are, is a very unique way. That awareness of yourself, of other things around you, that awareness which we call consciousness is the thing that makes you not want a certificate of existence, that makes you certify your own existence without needing any help. In other words, you don't need another consciousness to tell you you exist. That's all. Somebody asked me, like, how do you know you exist? Do you hear voices in the head? I said, go see a doctor immediately if you're hearing voices in the head. This is an awareness which doesn't need to speak. You don't have to hear voices anywhere, in your head or outside your head. It's not a voice, it's a knowing. And what is it a knowing? What does it know? It's a knowing the being, that's all. Knowing being means it's a conscious being, self-conscious of itself and conscious of everything else. In other words, the whole universe called this Jagat, this manifest universe, is an object for you, or a series of objects for you which you objectify, but you cannot, and you need not objectify yourself. You cannot objectify yourself. So self-effulgence means you are evident to yourself, and then it also means you are evident to yourself not as an object. This is very unique. So in that verse which we just talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, there is no sun that shines there, no moon dares to go there, and what to talk about fire, etc., is told only because there is a light that stymies the light of the sun and the moon, etc., because this consciousness cannot be talked about really speaking, because it is you, and the moment you start to talk about it, you objectify it, and it cannot be objectified. So we have to come with new ways and new vocabulary to talk about that which you already know. Why are you talking about that which I already know? I came here to talk about what I don't know. So why are you making your life uncomfortable by trying to find new ways of talking about it? I never told you, if I already know I am, then why do I need this knowledge? You know you are, but don't ask the next question. What is the next question? Who am I? That is why you need this knowledge. I know I am, but what I am is riddled with doubts, errors, vagueness, and total mistakes. I mistake myself to be what I am not, and I do not take myself to be what I am. What a sad situation. I am that limitless Brahman, the whole. I say, no, not that. I can't be that. How is that possible? That is God. I am odd at best. How is this possible? That is the cause. And me, I have to add a BE in front of the cause. I am because. That is all. And I am small. So therefore, this cannot be me. I don't take myself to be what I am. And the costs of not taking myself to be what I am is very steep. Because I take myself to be what I am not. So if I am not the whole, I have eschewed the possibility of being the whole, being the cause. Therefore, I take myself to be limited, I take myself to be finite, I take myself to be mortal, because identifying with the body, identifying with the mind, I take myself to be restless, angry, subject to grief, sorrow, all these things. And this is the dilemma, this is the problem. This is why even though I am self-effulgent, meaning I know I am, I still need this knowledge because I don't know what I am. That I am is got a nice blank, fill in the blank. So that blank unfortunately doesn't remain blank because it's already filled in. Yes. Is filled in, and what was already there has been struck and filled in with one's own understanding, misunderstanding of what one is, based on one's identifications, fears, prejudices, preferences, etc. And this is all because of self-ignorance. So therefore we always say that the self-knowledge in the form of the Kathopanishad and other texts, Bhagavad Gita, they do not establish the Atma. They do not reveal the Atma. Atma is self-revealing. It doesn't even need the Upanishad to tell you that you are. Then what do these texts do? They merely uncover all the wrong things and the wrong ideas I have about myself, the Atma. They remove the wrong notions so that then the what it really is can shine. Because the wrong notions of my finitude and my problems and my fears, etc., overlay this self-revealing Atma. So there is a mixture here. The self-revealing Atma, which is self-effulgent, the self-effulgent I, as it were, has fallen into hard times because of self-ignorance, So can I be self-effulgent and self-ignorant? Absolutely. Why not? They are not contradictory. This self-effulgence just shines the light on everything, including my ignorance. I know. What do you know? That I don't know. I know that I don't know. So the self-effulgence is not opposed to ignorance. This we have to understand. So simultaneously, bhati, I know. And then specifically, I don't know myself, vibhati. Both bhati and vibhati, because in the last, mantra, the question was, kimu bhati vibhati va? Does it shine generally or does it shine specifically? It does both. Like even look within, in my own, mind, there are two cognitions being lit up at the same time. First is I am, I know. Oh, but I don't know physics. Oh, but I don't know myself. Oh, but I don't know Upanishad. Oh, but I don't know this. Oh, but I don't know that. But the funny thing is, this don't know of the specific does not cancel out the general I know. In fact, it reiterates it. Very nice. And so, going back to the Bhagavad Gita verse, so yad gatva na nivartante. That's very important. Knowing which, gatva means going. Going means knowing, Why going means knowing, Because many times, even in English, we say, don't go there. Meaning, don't follow the thought pattern to get to that place, because that's not where I'm going. So going here is also knowing, correct? So it's used metaphorically. It's not like this black hole, this unimaginable dark black hole in which something enters and doesn't come out. Yad gatva na nivartante means the one who gains this understanding never goes back to a place of ignorance. Yeah. And this is true even relatively, or when you talk about the absolute as well. What is the meaning of bhuvanti? Not bhavanti, that everyone knows. Bhuvanti. What is the meaning? You don't know, correct? Okay, so now you have Sanskrit word bhuvanti, ignorance, correct? Yeah. Supposing if I were to tell you, why supposing I am going to tell you, bhuvanti is a unique word that is made up of two words, bhuvanam tanoti, the one who sustains all the worlds of names and forms. So bhuvanam, you take, bhuvana from there, and then from tanoti you just take ti, bhuvanti, Bhuvantaye varivaskrutaya ushadhinam pataye namaha. Yeah, it comes in the whatever that is, Rudram. Yeah. So bhuvantaye, fourth case of this word bhuvanti, bhuvanam tanoti. You may forget bhuvanam tanoti, you may forget also the meaning, but you cannot say anymore I have bhuvanti, ignorance. Gone. Tomorrow if I ask, you will say, that thing, yes. Yeah, you said something, something plus something made up word, but you cannot deny you know. Correct? So once, even relatively speaking, the ignorance is removed, you cannot say, I am bhuvanti ignorant. You cannot. you know. So what to talk of yourself? So yad gatva, going where you don't ever have to return to this place of self-ignorance, which is fraught with what? Sorrow, fear, because self-ignorance morphs into sorrow very quickly, because I take myself to be finite, limited and miserable. This is what it is. Self-ignorance morphs into fear. Because of self-ignorance, I take not only myself as a discrete, finite individual, but other people are also discrete, finite individuals. And what? They are stronger and bigger than me. So therefore there is fear. Dvaitadhi bhayam bhavati. Duality causes fear, correct? So this self-ignorance, when it is banished, there is no fear, no sorrow, and I don't go there again. Go there means what? Wading in the shallow but dangerous waters of samsara. I don't go back to samsara again. And also another meaning, there is no rebirth. Rebirth means where? Samsara? No, but what if I am born in the realm of the celestials, the Chaiwalas and all these other celestials, so many worlds are there, better worlds than this, still it is back. Many happy returns there also, correct? There also you will be blowing candles from your apupa. What is apupa? Cake. Sanskrit word for cake. Made of rice flour, gluten-free cake. Yeah. There also people will be singing many happy returns back to the realm of this circuitous life, making the rounds again and again and again, asking the same questions. What is the same question? Kimu bhati vibhati va? Does it shine? Does it not shine? What is happening? What is there? So the Lord's abode. Lord means you, really. That is what oneness is. Because we cannot have a duality even between myself and the Lord. You cannot have a duality. That Lord which I am seeking to know and understand is revealed as the truth of this I, the very presence that lights up this whole universe. So there cannot be any distinctions between that who is the cause of the universe and myself. There cannot be any distinctions between the manifest universe and myself, because everything that I light up is not separate from the lighter upper, which is myself alone. So the whole thing is just wondrous. So this knowledge, knowing which there is no more pain, no more sorrow, no more divisions, this is what is described as self-knowledge. And this mantra is the quintessential verse for self-knowledge. And that's why we use it in our, religious service. When you wave the camphor lamp, camphor is used because it does not leave any residue. It burns without residue. And the camphor is like a blob, And this opaque blob is the stands in for my self-ignorance, which is also opaque, which is also like a big blob, which comes in the way of my understanding. So the burning of the ignorance with the camphor, light, which is waved in front of the deities. The deities here is not, images or idols. We don't have idol worship. That's idol talk. We don't have idol worship. What we have is, a form to relate to the formless. That which is formless, you cannot worship. You can only know as yourself. But in the process, I need to connect, I need to see this from the standpoint of where I am. And the standpoint of where I am is this small little flickering lamp who doesn't know where it's going, and any wind can come and blow me away from the path, from my quest. And so therefore the deities become stand-in for this self-shining Lord, that's what it is, which is neither he nor she. Therefore, we can invoke as he or she, doesn't matter. And this, the deity becomes a way to relate to the formless because I don't have the maturity to know that I am formless. But the point is that the deities are a way to get that maturity through the everyday practice of the worship, to ask, to pray for that maturity. And with the help of the teachings, I get to the place where I enjoy everything as a manifestation of the Lord, not just when I go into the prayer room. That is the whole idea. Everything becomes an image, really. It's just like looking in the mirror. Wherever you go, you see the Lord. You can say, wherever you go, you see yourself. Both are the same. Very beautiful. And so, as an enactment of this, so the camphor, which is a blob of my misery or a blob of the self-ignorance, is lit, and the small little camphor lamp is waved 3 or 4 times around the deities, and this mantra is chanted. You are that self-effulgent light of consciousness. I am also that. The only difference is you know and I don't know. I'm in the process of knowing. And I dare to shine this small little fire. Kuto ayam agnihi. When the sun itself does not shine there, when the shine of the sun is defeated by the shine of this consciousness. And I'll tell you later how, just understand it. Then what to talk of this small little flickering flame that is going around, like this. So, that means what? That this flame, is of the burning, which signifies the burning of my own ignorance. By your grace, I offer unto you, may all this smallness which I see in myself, may it be rid. May I be rid of this smallness, just like the camphor burning leaves no residue, unlike a candle, That's why we generally don't use candles, but in the West we are constrained to, because we don't want the fire alarm to go off, every evening and morning. There are so many hazards, fire hazards. In India we leave the lamp burning all the time, no problem. But here we are very, very careful because everything is made of wood. What is the meaning of wood? If it could burn, it would. Yeah, that's the idea. So this mantra is just expressing the truth of the self in a very ingenious and beautiful way. It's the same as what was explained in the Bhagavad Gita, because the Bhagavad Gita has taken it from here. Na tatra suryo bhati, there the sun does not shine. Na chandra tarakam, neither the moon nor the stars. Na imaha vidyutaha bhanti. Vidyutaha, plural, lightnings, flashes of lightnings do not shine there. Imaha because it's female, so feminine. So flashes of lightning do not shine there. Kutaha ayam agnihi. What to talk of this miserable fire that can be objectified by me. These are not even, when the celestial bodies don't stand a chance of outshining the self, what to talk of these miserable, firebrand. Why? Tameva bhantam. Bhantam means shining. When that alone shines, when that self-effulgent one shines, then everything shines after. Anubhati. Very beautiful. Like the sun, we say the sun is the cause of day. We have the day because of the sunlight. The sun has come. Because of the sun I can see, otherwise I can't see anything. The sun lights up my eyes to see. In this sentence, sun bhati and eyes anubhati. Correct? But that's not the whole picture. Who is the one who is saying, here comes the sun? Don't say Beatles. Okay? Yeah. Who is the one that's saying, here comes the sun? I say. Even in the song it says that. You know? I'm saying that. I'm saying, here comes the sun. You know? I say. That means what? This light is cognizing that light. So who bhati and who anubhati? I bhati, that's grammatically wrong. I bhami. And you know, the I is the one that shines, and everything shines after. After means not 2 minutes later. I look at the sun and then 2 minutes later it starts shining. It's not the question of time. It's not the question of first and second. It's the question of that which is self-effulgent and that which is effulgent because the self has cognized and objectified it. So there is no time involved. Otherwise you say, okay, now I'm self-shining, and then 2 minutes later, when I look at the sun, then it starts to shine. 2 minutes later, it also wakes up. No, there's no time involved in this, because we are talking of that which is timeless. An effulgence that is timeless, an effulgence that is so total that it does not need a second thing to light it up, whether it is sun, moon, or reflected light, original light, fire, nothing, lightning. It is self-effulgent. It shines, and then after, and anything else that shines after. See, this after causes a problem. After means you think time, Now I will have dinner. Afterwards, I'll have dessert. You see, there is a time lag. There is a time lag. So now I will do this. Now I will study. After that, I will sleep. Right? Now I will read. After that, I will go to sleep. So usually our minds goes in this categorical, within is trapped within the time-space matrix. But here, anubhati is called, the word anu, the prefix anu is always translated as after. But that's not a good translation. We should say anu is the better translation is in accordance with. That's a better translation. So bhati shines, and then anubhati shines because of, or in keeping with that shine it shines. Like even a red hot iron ball. You put this iron ball, which is neither red nor hot in the beginning, you put it in the foundry. Everything else in the universe melts, but when you talk of metals, what happens? Smelts. I don't know why. Yeah. Not smells, smelts. So you try to smelt this ball in the foundry, but you take it out before it melts, and before the smelting happens. And then what do you find? It is red. It's bright red. And it is hot. Tapta ayaf pindavat. Tapta, hot, ayah, iron pinda, ball. Like a hot red iron ball. The heat and the redness, are they the intrinsic property of the iron, or are they the intrinsic property of the fire? Fire. So therefore you can say fire bhati, and the red hot iron ball anubhati. Got it? So it's a borrowed shine. Same thing water. What is the nature of water? Reflects? Fluidity? Cold. Shita hi sa jalasya prakritihi. Very interesting, because Shita means cold. Shita is female, feminine. And then jalasya that's masculine. How come it is that? Because it's qualifying prakritihi, the nature. So the nature of water is cool. You can say it reflects, you can say it flows, it's fluid, all that. But here we are only looking at one particular aspect in keeping with the, in keeping with the example. So, so in accordance to this example. So we are right now not so interested whether it reflects or whether it flows. Both of those are true. But it has one more property which is cool. It is cool, correct? But then I want tea. So what do I do? Put the water, pour the water in a pot and then put the saucepan on the fire. Then after a while, because I have nothing better to do, I put my finger in. Yeah. Then what happened? I cannot say Shita hi sa jalasya prakriti. Then what was Shitam has now become Ushnam, hot. But that is not its intrinsic nature. Why? Because fire bhati, and then what is that? Fire dahati, burns, and then the water anudahati, burns after. You see, burns in keeping with or borrows the burn from the fire. Same thing with wood. What is the nature of wood? It's just to be a log, and lie around. That's the nature of wood. But then you put a flame, you light the wood, like in the fire ritual, you light the yajna, and then what happens? Burns. And you see the wood become this red, hot embers, you see that. But neither the redness nor the heat are the intrinsic property of the wood. So the fire dahati and the wood anudahati. Did you get this distinction? So this bhati anubhati business, this is what the whole thing is. So bhati, the self-effulgent eye, shines, and everything that is objectified, including bodies of effulgence like the sun, etc., lightning, fire, etc., they are all anubhanti. This alone bhati. The verb bha, the word bha and the verb bhati can only be used for the eye because I am the sun shines. Oh, so I make the sunshine? Yes. How? Then we are getting very close to the Zen, to the Zen realm. What is the Zen realm? What happens in the Zen world? In the Zen world, we have those questions. What is one such question? If the redwood tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? Are? What a question. So if, does it make a sound? The nice thing is, you can say yes and you will be correct, and you can say no and you will also be correct. And to figure this out takes 3-4 lifetimes. And and this is what the master asks the student to find out the eligibility. And the student has the head completely all knotted up and tied and goes away and never comes back. Master says, okay, he wasn't ready or she wasn't ready. Master is happy because master has no pressure to teach. So that is what it is, Yeah, so in Vedanta we explain everything, The teacher does all the work in Vedanta. In Zen, the student does all the work, teacher gets the credit. In Vedanta, the teacher does all the work, the student gets the credit. Here it is opposite, just a joke, okay? Yeah, don't take it too seriously. So then, so how can you say yes to this question? If the redwood falls in the forest, what is the grist for the yes paksha, with the yes side of things? What is the proof you will give? What is the pramana for the yes? The pramana for the yes is naturally the laws of sound and the laws of everything. Of course it will make a sound. So yes, of course it will make a sound. Make a crashing noise. It will come down with a crashing noise because it's following the laws, and when this many tons of wood hits the ground at this velocity, this is just the laws of physics, this kind of a sound is produced, provided it's not in a vacuum, correct? So all this we know, and then we can say yes, it makes the sound. But I would be equally correct to say no, it does not make a sound because of the absence of the bhati, the hearer. So if there is no bhati, then where is the anubhati? You know? First there is the, what is that? That cognizer not being there, what sound? Correct? So can there be a sound without the hearer? Think about this. So you can say no, very happily and confidently you can say absolutely not. How can the sound exist without the hearer? The sound and hearer, are linked in a relational, way. They are in a relationship. The sound is objectified. The sound is an object. Then only you can say it's a sound. If the sound is not objectified, how can it be a sound? May as well be silent, correct? So you see how these cones are? This is what the Zen cone, this is what the whole thing is. And so, but here the same thing is being talked about, is that without the cognizer, nothing can shine. I objectify everything. And then one more thing is being said, tasya bhasa, that's the one that's being said in the last line, tasya bhasa, itham bhute tritiya, through its own shine, in the form of its own shine, sarvamidam vibhati, everything else shines after in that way. Through its own shine, everything shines after. Very interesting. So I lend my light to all the objects. The objects come to light because I am. That is what is the meaning of anubhati. The objects come to light because I am. I am the cognizer. And therefore when I am the cognizer, then the I, without I, there can be no cognition. So I am both bhati and anubhati, correct? Vibhati. We should not say anubhati here, vibhati. So kimu bhati vibhati va, this is the answer to that question. So I am both, I shine and everything shines after. After doesn't mean after 5 minutes, okay? After means as soon as it's cognized, in keeping with the light of this consciousness, everything is objectified. By the light of this consciousness, which is always a subject, never an object. So all objects resolve into that which is the subject, but the subject does not resolve into anything at all. This is what we have to understand. So this is quintessential Vedanta. This is the total vision given in this very succinct mantra, also occurs in the Mundaka Upanishad. We will encounter it there as well. And so very beautiful. And one more thing we should see is this whole process from we have seen this externally. I cognize the sun. And so when I say the sun is shining, there is actually another shining happening, which is the presence of myself that is objectifying the sun. So that presence is shinier, you can say, than the sun. Brighter than the sun, correct? And so that is externally speaking. Let's take the same process internally. Internally, what is happening? There is that general I shine. I shine, I am, aham asmi sada bhami, aham asmi sada bhami, aham asmi sada bhami, I am, I shine, I am. I shine means I know. I am, I know, I am, I know, I am, I know. What do you know? I am, I know, I know. And also there is one more word, I am now. Yeah. There is that now also there. When you say I am, is it past tense? No. Is it future tense? No. It's not I will be. It's not I was. It is I am. In fact, it is present not only present but present continuous. So therefore, when you say I am, then the question is, how do you know I am? I just know. That is self-effulgent I. I know I am now. This is what it is. I am now. Now I am. I now am. All the combinations you can say. I am, I know, now. This is what it is. Now, this is the general cognition. Correct? And so, is Atma the general cognition or the specific cognition? Well, it's neither general nor specific, you can say. It is the truth of all cognitions, the content of all cognitions, both general and specific. Because when I say I am, I am saying I know I am. When I say flower is, that means what? What does that mean? I know this is flower. I am objectifying this thing called flower. In every cognition, the I is present. The I know I am is present in every cognition, be it general or specific. In every cognition, there are two components. One is that which is finite, and the other is that which upholds the finite, which is infinite. And in fact, the infinite cannot be called a component, but we are constrained for words. It's a component, as it were. So what is the finite component of every cognition? The object of cognition. What is the infinite in every cognition? I, the cognizer. The changeless I cognizes flower, cup, microphone, table, computer, all the other bodies in the room. You see? So that, and this infinite cognition, which is the truth of the cognizer, does not undergo any change. It is limitless. The limitlessly shining I takes on certain particular hues in order to objectify finite things, like on this whole stream of water. Let's say in the fall, you have the leaves falling, and then the stream is moving, and the leaves falling, and the stream is constantly moving. You don't know which leaf, how it fell. It's not attaching to those things. That's why you can have, you're not stuck with a cognition. Suppose you see an elephant, and then a pot, and then a flower. You don't see them all one on top of another. This is called a thought life hangover. You don't have a thought life hangover. You see elephant came, elephant gone, on the canvas of this infinite consciousness. I am, I shine, I know, I am now. I know, I shine, I am now. Oh, there goes an elephant, literally. Elephant came, elephant went, flower came, flower went, pot came, pot went, thought came, thought went, pot thought came, pot thought went, flower thought came, flower thought went. And let us now change the words into flower consciousness came, flower consciousness went, but consciousness is. Flower awareness came, elephant awareness came, pot awareness came, thought awareness came, thought awareness in the form of the thought went, awareness always is, it doesn't go. So you see that the beauty here. So this is the whole thing. So this is what in the Kena Upanishad is called Pratibodha Viditam Matam. So we don't have to get caught up in, does it shine generally, does it shine specifically? The answer is both, but yes. But the thing is, it just shines. It as though morphs into that which it is objectifying. But then that morphing is happening as though on the canvas of the non-morphing, unchanging cognition of I. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. It lights up the whole universe without undergoing any change. Tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. I am, therefore everything is. This is a very nice thing to contemplate for the, forever actually. And this is a wonderful contemplation. You just say, sit in one place and say, I am, therefore this is. I am, therefore this is. Even internally you can do. I am, therefore anger is. I am, therefore sorrow is. I am, therefore confusion is. I am lighting up the confusion, which really is not at all confused, because that light of consciousness which is lighting up the confusion is free of confusion, that I am. Is free of sorrow, that I am. Is free of anger, is free of restlessness. This can be a lovely meditation. Have fun. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Any questions? Yeah, what is your question? Anubhava. Yeah, correct. That is correct. Anubhava in accordance with being. Not being in accordance with what is. So everything is a recognition. Anubhava is a recognition. So mind without thought is awareness. Well, awareness is, even awareness is not dependent upon the mind. Awareness is cognized in the mind. A cognized awareness, yes, it's cognized in the mind, but not, by the mind, you can say that. But awareness it does not require a mind. Plants have awareness, they don't have a mind, so to speak. Other forms of life, there is awareness without having, a mind. What we mean by the mind, the seat of buddhi, intelligence, cognition, etc. So awareness simply is. When the awareness is, as it were, endowed with a mind, then it has a certain self-reflexivity. It is able to express itself. But awareness is, even in a person whose mind is completely impaired, awareness still is. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. Welcome. What is your name?
Jonathan.
Nice.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Come again.